All right, welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be talking about how to edit your photos to really make your subject pop and really be the clear main focal point of the image. So when you're taking a photo with a clear subject, sometimes it's hard to make that subject clear and defined. So whether the subject is wearing a similar color as the rest of the photo, or the background is really busy, or there's multiple different aspects that can kind of be perceived as subject, sometimes the subject can get lost in that photo. So today I'm going to be showing you a technique that I use all the time that I call the double masking technique. It's specifically using Adobe Lightroom to really draw the viewer's eye to the subject that you're intending to be the main focus of that photo. So for the purpose of this video, I did choose a photo that has a really good starting point. So our subject is wearing white. She has light blonde hair. She's wearing blue, which there's not really any other blue in the photo. The background is dark and it's green. So that gives us a good base where the subject is already popping off the photo. I just chose that for simplicity, and I'm gonna show you just ways to enhance it, but you could use this on all kinds of different images. So I like to begin by just making a few minor basic adjustments, exposure, shadows, highlights, etc. And just cleaning up the photo a little bit. You definitely don't want to go overboard here. You don't even really have to do this because we are going to be adjusting all these aspects later using the masks. I just like to kind of have that base just by cleaning it up just a little bit. So for example, I'm just going to start by lowering the highlights, lifting the shadows a little bit to make her pop, darkening the blacks ever so slightly, and lifting the exposure just a little bit. That's all. I just wanted to kind of get that little bit out of the way and just give us a bit better of a starting point to start with the masks. So the reason I call this the double masking technique is because we're going to be creating a mask on the subject. So all of our edits will only affect the subject, no other part of the image. And then from there, we're going to be creating a separate mask that only affects the background or the rest of the image and not the subject. So essentially, we're going to be editing the subject and the background differently. So the subject inherently is going to pop off the photo because there's going to be a clear difference between the edits. So just to give you a little bit of context on this edit, the style I'm going to be going for is the bright, white, almost angelic person in the front, looking into the darkness, kind of a cave of darkness in the back, and a lot of dark, deep colors, and then her being bright and white. Just my editing style here, just to give you a little bit of context so you understand where I'm going with this edit. So I just want the subject to pop nice and bright and lively into a dark, mysterious background. All right, so we're going to add the subject mask. So you're going to go to the right-hand side of the screen, press mask plus to add a new mask and go select subject. This is going to allow Adobe's AI to select only the subject of the photo. In my case, it did it really well because there is a clear defined subject in the photo. If yours isn't as clean, you can always click the mask up here and press the plus or the minus to add or subtract just to make sure it's only your subject that's getting selected. So we're going to do three main edits to this photo, to this specific mask. It's going to be brightness, color, and texture. So we're going to increase the brightness and the lighting of the photo a little bit. You don't want to go overboard here because it's easy to just kind of crank it all the way up and then have, a white splotch or a shadow essentially. So what you're going to want to do is just a little bit on the exposure. I normally hover around 0.8 to 0.12, I find is the sweet spot. It depends on how the photo was taken, of course. Play around with it to see how it looks good in your end. I like to drop the blacks. I find it gives a little bit of kind of texture and layering to the blacks in the subject. So it kind of just lightens a little bit of the wrinkles and the curves and the clothes and stuff like that to make it a little bit livelier. I also like to increase the contrast and drop the shadows ever so slightly. From there, we're gonna play with the colors. So now step 2, I like to increase the saturation of the photo. Again, this is only affecting the subject, so it's really gonna make the blue and the gold tones in her hair pop. I'm then gonna really play on the yellow. So the background in this case is really green. There's not a lot of yellow back there. So we're gonna really play on the beige, white, and gold palette that we have in our subject. So I'm gonna increase the yellows a little bit. And I'm also gonna increase the pinks just to bring a little bit of that pink human into the skin. From there, we're gonna go all the way down to the effects. And now we're gonna affect the clarity or the texture. So I normally increase the texture and the clarity to about 5 on each just to give a little bit of definition to the front of the mask. So this is the double masking technique. So what you're gonna do is go to your mask that you've created on the subject. You're gonna wanna right click and press duplicate and invert the mask. So now you're gonna create a second mask that is only for the background, not the subject. And the key here is going to be to do the opposite of what we did to the subject. So in the subject, we brightened it, we added some yellows and pinks, added some color, and added some texture. For the background, we're gonna wanna darken it, take out some of the color, and take out some of the textures and the clarity, just to really make that key difference between the foreground and the background, or the subject and the background of the photo. Again, you don't wanna go overboard with this, but what we're gonna do is just lower the exposure a little bit, drop the blacks, drop the shadows. In the subject, we added some yellows and some pinks to really bring some life into the subject because of the palette. What we're gonna do is add some greens and a little bit of blue just to counteract those colors. Also, I'm gonna lower the saturation ever so slightly. We're then gonna eliminate a little bit of the texture and the clarity just to make the background a bit smoother and make that subject stand out even more. So there you go, now your double masking is done. Before I finish this photo, I like to do a couple things. I like to go to the hue, saturation, and luminance tab, the color mixer, and I'm just gonna, again, tweak the colors of the background and the foreground to make that key difference. So in this case, there's green in the background. Gonna go to the green slider, drop the luminance because I want those greens to be nice and dark, make them a little bit more of a blue tone so they're not as yellow and have that kind of earthy tone to them. I'd rather them have that blue luscious tone. And then I'm also gonna just decrease the saturation a little bit. Then our subject has that yellow and orange, we'll say, palette. We'll go to the yellow sliders, increase the luminance a little bit and increase the saturation. We're also gonna go to the oranges, do the same thing. And there you have it. Now the subject is really, really looking good and it's popping off of that background. The final thing I would recommend to do would be to crop your photo. We're gonna make the subject right in the middle and it's just gonna kind of add that final step to make it as clean as possible. So looking at the before and after the photos, you can see the difference. You can see the difference in the colors and the brightness between the foreground and the background and how that subject is really just glaring at you. And it's very obvious how you wanted this subject to be portrayed. So there you have it. That is what I call the double masking technique. There are many different ways to achieve this effect. This is just the one I came up with, the one that I use on a day-to-day basis whenever I'm editing photos with a subject. So whether that be portraits or wildlife or a photo of a car, there are different ways you can use this technique. Also, again, if you edit your photos using this technique, send them to me on Instagram at The Sneaky Lens. I'd love to take a look at them. I'd love to chat about how you found the technique, if there's anything you'd change, because I'm always also trying to learn from you guys as I'm trying to teach at the same time. You know, you're always able to learn. So if there's any recommendations you have, please reach out to me. I'd be glad to chat. So thank you very much. I will see you next video and I hope you have a great day. Peace.